Good evening. Welcome to the regular town council meeting, December 21st, 2023. Cape Charles Civic Center. Roll call.
Buckholz present.
Holloway present.
Bennett present.
Buda present.
Grossman present.
Palmer present.
All right, we've established a quorum. Can we rise for a moment of silence and pledge to allegiance? Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is appeal of Historic District Review Board decision on 114 Pine Street. Are you going to take us through that?
Good evening. In your packet, I've given you an entire staff report with all the attachments of the application that was filed by the property owners at 114 Pine Street, including all the documentation that was submitted during the Historic District Review Board meeting for comments that were received as part of that particular meeting. As background in the staff report, starting on page 3, in July of 2021, specifically July 21st, 2021, a certificate of appropriateness was approved at 114 Pine Street to Barrett Cree by the HDRB to install a 3-foot tall vinyl vertical panel fence in the front and side yard and a 6-foot vertical panel privacy fence in the rear yard. This certificate expired on July 21, 2022, without the fence installation being started. At that time, vinyl was an acceptable material choice for fencing. When the town adopted new historic district guidelines and amendments to the zoning ordinance relative to Article 3 of our general zoning district regulations and Article 8 of the historic district overlay, which you did those amendments on December 15th of 2022, one of the changes made was that vinyl was no longer an acceptable fencing material. The Planning and Zoning Office received a complaint in September of 2023 regarding the 114 Pine Avenue, and we investigated and we did find 2 violations. One violation concerning the shed on the property has been fully resolved and is in compliance with the zoning ordinance. The other violation is that the fence was being installed without an active certificate of appropriateness, which we confirmed this to be accurate, that this certificate of appropriateness had expired on July 20th, 2022, and work relative to the fence had been occurring sporadically in August and September of 2023, a full year after the permit had expired. Additionally, the fence material was vinyl, which is not allowed under the ordinance. Therefore, a notice of violation was issued on October 11th of 2023 to the property owner and indicated that the corrective action order to be taken to resolve this violation was as follows. No work on the construction of the fence may proceed until a valid certificate of appropriateness is issued by the HDRB and any permits may be required by the code official are obtained. As a side note, we put in that as standard language. For fences, no building permit is required, just so you're aware of that. 2, to submit a completed certificate of appropriateness application for the fence and all required documentation to the Planning and Zoning Department. Again, we made a note of telling them to please review the Cape Charles Historic District Overlay Design Guidelines, Section 9.2, relative to fences and freestanding walls. We also informed them under Section 9.2, 2D of the guidelines defines inappropriate fencing types, indicating that vinyl, PVC, or synthetic fences are inappropriate in the historic district. I had then met with the property owners Barrett Cree and Jerry Forbes on November 2nd of 23 concerning the violation and what options were available on this matter. Mr. Cree was adamant that he felt the fence was a continuous part of his house renovation project and wanted to have the opportunity to make that argument for the HDRB. I did indicate to him that he should file 2 applications for the November calendar, a request for extension of the expired certificate of appropriateness, and then a new renovation certificate of appropriateness application for the fence, and then to also make the case as part of that application why a vinyl fence should be allowed at this property. However, the property owner only submitted a request for extension of the expired certificate of appropriateness which the HDRB did hear on Tuesday, November 21st of 2023. Again, as I mentioned, I've attached all of that documentation from that meeting. I've also provided you the minutes from the HDRB meeting. There was approximately about a 45-minute discussion dedicated to this agenda item at that HDRB meeting specifically. The board focused on the fact that during the term of the certificate of appropriateness for the fence, which again ran from July 21 of 2021 through July 21st of 2022, there was no construction activity relative to the fence. The board discussed if you can even petition for an extension 16 months later for a permit that was expired and whether material choice of a vinyl fence could be considered, since it was no longer considered an acceptable material choice in the historic district since December 15th of 2022. During this meeting, the property owner confirmed that some work on the fence first occurred in the summer of 2023. The posts were installed, and Chairman Glasser stated that she thought the fence had been abandoned as part of this project since nothing had happened with the fence in more than a year plus. HDRB Vice Chairman Tom motioned to approve a 6-month extension to a previously approved and expired certificate of appropriateness at 114 Pine on the application filed by Barrett Cree and Jerry Forbes to install said fence as described. This motion was seconded by Chairman Glasser. The vote was a 2 in favor, which was Herb Tom and Michael Strube, and 3 opposed, Kathy Glasser, Patricia James, and Martin Mayer, based upon the discussion by the board. Therefore, the motion was denied, which means the application was denied. We notified the applicant, who was present for, of course, this meeting, but we notified them in writing on November 27th of this decision, and they have since filed the appeal with you with the town council. So I think that gives you all the facts and information relative to the case itself, and I will stop and ask if you have any questions of me at this moment.
Andrew?
So just to be clear, so this COA was only for the fence?
Yes.
Just a question or an affirmation, perhaps, that there wasn't any process or procedural issues dealing with all that's before us. We have followed the process as outlined in our guidelines and in our ordinance.
I believe the staff has followed that process. I believe the HDRB has followed that process. And now that is a matter for this board to review if we have followed that process and make your decisions accordingly.
All right, thank you.
So this has gotten quite a bit more formal than it has been in the past. I'm not sure the reason for that. There was a time years ago when we received an appeal at almost every meeting, sometimes 2. And we deliberated and determined yea or nay as to whether or not we agreed with the decision, not the procedural portion of it, or not. And as I read this, we are only dealing with the procedural piece. And anybody that speaks needs to be sworn in. And so where did we get, what's the impetus for the formality of this?
There should have always been a formality to it, because when you do any appeal, it puts you into the quasi-judicial frame of what can happen here. Because whatever decision you reach today, if the applicant or any other aggrieved party who can achieve standing wants to file an appeal of your decision, that goes into circuit court. And so, yes, there are certain requirements going into circuit court that any judge looking at this case, if an appeal is filed there, is going to look that certain procedural steps have been followed, and we have sworn in people that this is truthful testimony that we're receiving, and the laws that govern all of those processes. So, relative to what you may have been reviewing appeals and making your decisions based upon previously, I think there was a bit of latitude given to the town council, thank you, under the prior guidance and ordinance requirements. When we went through the process and went through public hearing processes and everybody talking to our consultant about what's the best way to handle how appeals are done, they were fully informed the appeals was a contentious process between the HDRB and the town councils in prior years, and how should this be handled appropriately. And so our consultant at that point put forward a process in the guidelines, as well as recommendations of changes to our zoning ordinance, which was reviewed by both the town council, the historic board, the planning commission, and the public at large. And it was felt that the process for an appeal, if we are following the guidelines, which is what the HDRB is really in charge with, and we've now written guidelines in a manner that I think is quite conducive to public consumption and reading. They're quite easily digestible and understandable. We felt that really the issue came down to, did we not adhere to our own processes? Did we not follow our guidelines, the ordinance of that nature? That is the substance of an appeal. And so at this point, this isn't a question, do you like if he should have that fence or his choice of style of windows or doors or something of that nature? It's within the guidance of the guidelines and the ordinance itself. And so I did enclose in the staff report all of those appropriate sections out of our ordinance to ensure that you know what they are, so you don't have to go hunt for them yourselves. So we put them all in here, both from the appeals requirements, and then from the guidelines, we've enclosed those. And then more specifically, because this really isn't a question even on the material choice of the fence in question, it really comes down to the central thing. Can there be an extension of an expired certificate of appropriateness? So we have provided you the requirements that are contained in our documents relative to certificates of appropriateness and what happens for expirations. So.
Thank you. So I just wanted to make that clear. I think there are other members of council that are here for some of those appeals. We were reported to the DHR, who came to council to review some of those decisions, and they had no problems with anything that was done. But I hear you and I understand you, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that.
Sure.
So on this agenda after the staff presentation, the case, unless someone else has questions.
I just want to just reaffirm that that's why we did this whole thing a couple of years ago, to set this up, so we didn't have to go through all those appeals constantly. That's why we did this.
All right, so the next thing on the agenda, if anyone, if there are no more questions, is the appellate testimony.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for hearing our appeal. We went through the application process and we were approved by each member of the Historic Review Board. The fence that we purchased was a very high grade, selected, it met the guidelines, and was compatible with the architectural style of our neighbors. We did not have the slightest idea that we were not in compliance and needed to ask for an extension. We began work within the first year time frame required to commence construction. We made no changes and we did not abandon the project. We certainly would not have jeopardized over $13,000 of approved fencing, of which a third has already been installed, if we thought for a second that we would lose our right to do so. We humbly ask for your good faith and understanding to allow us to finish our fence and to please not cause us any further financial hardship. Thank you for your time and your consideration. And if you have any questions.
Thank you. So now, public comments on this subject.
Okay, Ann Haywood Walker. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much. So I'd just like to ask you all to consider giving this extension. I understand about the procedure and all these things. I did try to kind of do my homework. I reviewed the COA extension form and the staff report, the minutes of the Historic Review Board from November 21st, and then section 9.2 of the fence and freestanding walls and the new guidelines. I just want you to know that I respect the work of the town staff and the Historic District Review Board, and I also understand the importance of the town staff and boards to administer zoning and related actions in a consistent manner according to approved policies and procedures. I believe everyone is trying to do the right thing. So when there's a lack of agreement, it's not because people aren't trying to do the right thing. It's, what does that mean? So I'd like to ask the town council to consider, and I'm doing this partly because it's been an exercise for me to do homework and learn more about the process too. And I think about, I too could wind up in this situation one of these days. So what do I need to know? So I guess the way I look at this is I think that there are extenuating circumstances which make the request for an extension legitimate and fair. And these circumstances are, the application was submitted during the pandemic when Cape Charles experienced a big influx of new property owners, new renovations, and delays in the supply chain. And they weren't only new owners, but they were new owners with a lot of money. And they paid, as we know, a lot of money for new properties. And I'll say, Bill, and my experiences with renovations on our properties, our building downtown that we've owned, it just so happened, I closed my business and we were gonna renovate it, and he finally was gonna get the apartment that he wanted to make for the last 25 years. All of that happened during the pandemic. And we have experienced so many delays over a year in trying to persuade contractors to do work for us. This experience has persuaded me that large jobs rise to the top of the priority list for contractors and the others fall to the bottom. I can't tell you how many times I've ambushed contractors on job sites or where they go to have coffee at 7 in the morning. I have groveled, I have begged to please commit to work on our less than full-time projects to pay their staff. And it just hasn't worked. We waited a year for things. So in this regard, I think it's a legitimate extenuating circumstance. So yes, the COA expired, but I believe these circumstances beyond the applicant's control warrant their fence being grandfathered under the previously approved guidelines, especially considering the amount of money they've spent on fencing materials in good faith. Is it fair to penalize him for delays in the renovation process and ask him to purchase more materials? I realize it all is in your hands now, but so if I put myself in in those circumstances, and it's just hard to figure out what's right, but it doesn't seem right to ask them to go given the timing of all of this and what happened. So thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Barrett Cree, I know, did you want to speak it? Because I know you're one of the appellants. Yeah, I mean, he signed up.
My name is Barrett Cree. My address is 114 Pine Street. And I, too, have a great deal of respect for the Historic Review Board and for what y'all do. We never meant to do anything wrong. The delays we incurred were not of our choosing. Between all of the delays that we experienced, we worked there every day in between medical procedures and treatments. We went the legal process to make sure what we had bought and we budgeted for we could use. And we had no idea, one, that a code had changed or that we needed to do anything, and we simply worked on it in the most practical manner we could, diligently, and we just humbly ask that you allow us to finish the completion with the fence that we so wanted to use, and we went through the process that we have on hand. And we really appreciate your consideration in hearing our appeal. Thank you.
Jack Forgosh?
Thank you. I didn't prepare any remarks. I've known Jerry Forbes and Barrett Cree for 10 years. Jerry, as a real estate agent, helped me purchase my house on the corner of Randolph and Strawberry. So as you walk the streets, as we all do in our town, I had walked by what Barrett and Jerry were doing at their property. And the one thing that caught my ear when, I'm not sure who this is, what you were speaking, that the installation of the fence didn't start happening until, I think you said maybe 2023. But I remember the fence being on the property back in 2021, so it seemed like it had already started. And that's the biggest concern, investing money, rules change. It's true, I think we all know, the delays that we've all had trying to complete projects using contractors. It's been a challenge. And with that, it's just, I wonder whether or not the project had started, because they had bought those materials, had them on site, and we're just timing it as it relates to all of the other work that needs to go into a property where a fence might have been in the way. So with that, I just ask you guys as a, council to approve what was originally approved by the Historic Review Board. Thank you.
Is it Joanne Montgomery?
I signed in, but I guess she didn't make it, so she's trapped.
Okay, all righty. And I did, that's everybody that has signed up, but I did receive some in writing to be read into the record. Two of these letters, individuals also submitted letters for the Historic District Review Board meeting, but they have updated their information, so ask that they be read again. First one is from John and Gudrun Cordell. It says, "Greetings, Town Council. I reside at 300 Mason Avenue, Unit 2D, and would like to lend my support to Mr. Kreese and Jerry Forbes' appeal. We moved here because of the sense of community and mutual support that we feel in Cape Charles. In this spirit, we hope you'll support their petition. Their property, it sets a positive example for the town, and they should not bear a financial burden for a rule change that occurred after his initial investment. I hope the Town Council will listen to its constituents and citizens and find in his favor. Thank you for your consideration in this matter." This one is from Sheila Shields. So, "Dear Town Council members, I am writing this letter regarding the Historic District Review Board's recent decision denying the extension request for the original certificate of appropriateness for the existing fence at 114 Pine Street. Prior to the HRB's decision denying this couple's extension request, without any regards to the financial harm it would cause, the HRB approved an after-the-fact COA and then approved a second modification on another COA. I believe the outcome was substantially unfair to these property owners. Their property is directly across from my property. I have watched as these owners have put in an exorbitant amount of time, money, and effort to improve this property, which had been an eyesore. Their fence undeniably enhances the overall property and matches most of the fences in the historic district. It is unfair this couple should have to incur such financial hardships for a fence partially installed that went through the correct process and approval. I'm asking that the Town Council please reconsider HRB's decision. I believe that allowing the fence to be completed, as was initially approved, is a much fairer decision for any good standing member of our community. Thank you for considering my comments." This next letter is from Bob McClanahan. "Dear Town Council members, good evening and thank you for allowing me to weigh in on the Historic Review Board's denial of the fence extension request at 114 Pine Street. As a builder, I'm well aware of the constraints and obstacles when working on such a small and difficult-sized lot. The grading, fence, and landscape are always the last items. I believe an extension to allow the final leg of a fence that met the town code and received full approval at time of purchase would be more than appropriate under these circumstances. Thank you for your consideration in this matter." The last letter is from Marlene Cree. It says, "Dear Town Council members, thank you for allowing me to comment on the Historic Review Board's recent denial of the extension request for the original certificate of appropriateness of the fence at 114 Pine Street. My son and Jerry have poured their sweat and equity into this property. They went through the appropriate approval process and made this expensive top-of-the-line fence purchase based on the town's code. It is a very attractive fence, and already 35% has been completed. They have worked hard and in good faith to complete their project, and the resulting effect has improved this property, which benefits everyone, including the town's tax base. As a serious financial hardship was imposed on this couple when the Historic Board denied such a reasonable extension request. Please reconsider the Historic Review Board's decision by simply allowing them to complete the fence as originally fully approved. I ask that my comments be read into the record. Thank you for your consideration in this matter.
He was asking about,
All right, so it's council deliberation and vote time.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if Katie can address, or Jerry, or both, but there seems to be a dispute on whether when the fence was begun. I think that, to me, is an important, I don't know if that was addressed during Historic District Review Board, if you could, Katie, because to me, that would have been just clarification of that.
I'm going to refer you again into the packet. Behind, there was his application to this board appealing the decision. Then we had the decision letter that was issued. Behind that, we gave you an excerpt from the wrong board, Historic District Review Board meeting. Within that, I'm going to direct you down to, give me a second, it's on here. We asked Mr. Cree it was asked from the board.
What page?
I'm reading as fast as I can, hang on. This is the fun part of my job.
Is it under the attachment, new business piece, or? No. Oh, I see.
I don't know the page number, so it's that last full paragraph under the excerpt. Member Mayor reiterated that this certificate of appropriateness has expired. Vice Chairman Tom asked if the fence installation had started. Mr. Cree answered summer of 2023 after certificate had expired. Some posts on the back have been installed. So that was his testimony at the meeting with Historic Board.
Where did the sequence of work come from?
That was provided by the applicant as part of his application submission for the request for an extension of the certificate of appropriateness.
When did it expire, the first one?
It expired July 21st of 2022.
All right, so based on this sequence, you started digging the holes in May of 2022. I mean, just looking at the sequence.
Just the sequence
it was
of events.
supplied, that's all I'm saying.
Talk into the microphone.
So, I mean, the sequence, he started digging holes in May of 2022. That's what his sequence is, but
Mr. Cree, do you want to speak to what you stated at the
So
Historic
what
District?
was stated, can you re-say that, what was stated again, Katie? I'm just trying to clarify in my own head.
Sure. Mr. Cree stated, when asked this direct question at the meeting, he stated that he installed posts in the back starting in the summer of 2023. And specifically, it was July and August of 2023.
Anybody?
Yeah, I'll add, I knew this was going to eventually come to roost when we went through the design guidelines. I went back during a work session back in '22 when we were going through page by page the guidelines, and in this particular area, I had made the comment that I extracted the words that are shown right now, and then I added a commentary, and we talked about it at the meeting. saying that this is very different from how we're going to approach things going, and do we know what we're signing up to? And I gave the example at the time saying that an applicant installs vinyl windows on a contributing structure that the board does not agree to and requires window removal. You know, per the words that we're inserting, we would agree with the historic board to remove those windows. So we did have discussion around the process at that particular time, and just noted that this is going to be very different going into the future. That's why I asked the process question, is there anything that we can see in reading, was there any element of the process not fulfilled?
And does the applicant still have the ability to go to the Historic District Review Board and apply again for approval of the fence? I know you advised them to do that, and they didn't submit to.
Yes. And that is why when I met with them, I advised them to put in the 2 applications. I recognize that they were quite adamant of wanting to seek just the extension request, and I felt it was no longer a viable request, but there was requests from other parties who asked for consideration for that to be extended to them. And I said I would advance it to the HDRB, but I also felt they needed to put in an actual application requesting a new certificate of appropriateness. That would, I think, be approved for the fence to get reauthorized in terms of here's this new clock starting, and then be able to also petition the board why the material of the vinyl fencing should be considered, and were there extenuating circumstances, why that vinyl material should be allowed in that new application. But the applicant chose only to pursue the extension request.
So, Katie, so when we have the May in this sequence, I have not seen this until it was brought to our attention. I missed it down at the end. So I guess when they're referencing work having started within the year, they're talking about the fence holes dug in May 2022?
23.
No, on
The
this it
sequence
says May
says
22.
May 2022.
It's
a bunch of
further
pages
down.
after.
It's further
From the
down.
applicant. So does that constitute work being done?
However, while they may have dug holes, we know that there was heavy equipment parked on the property for many months. As best, in talking with the building official when he was out looking at a few things for me, those holes had collapsed.
Thank you.
Just a question to follow up on. In the past, when we have given extensions to certificates of appropriateness, have we ever given them, to the best of your recollection, after they have expired more than 6 months?
Not that I'm aware of more than 6 months. We've had a few come to us where they've 2 or 3 months passed, where we candidly have been in touch with them to get them to apply for an extension request, but I don't recall one any longer than 2 or 3 months away. Not 6 months, definitely not a year.
Yeah, we made it tougher too, because we went from 12 months for normal, and we brought it back to 6 months. So I expect to see more extensions coming through, given the contractor availability and material availability. But we specifically changed from 12 to 6.
So to be clear, we're not applying that standard in this case. We're talking about 16 months after the 12-month extension.
So what I heard you just say was they had 2 avenues to try to get this fence approved, and they chose extending their existing certificate, their expired certificate. But they could also apply for a new certificate, and it would start the whole process over again. And there's an opportunity for them there to, with all of the support they have, to get some favorable consideration from the Historic District Review Board. Am I hearing
I
that
think
right?
that is an absolute possibility in terms of both for setting a new time frame of a certificate of appropriateness for a fence, and then petitioning the board in that same application to ask them for consideration of the vinyl material still being used, explaining all the background associated with when they've purchased the fence, et cetera, the process again. I think there's a strong case to be made for the board's consideration of that. Again, I am not the historic board, that is their call to make. They could say no to the material choice. I do want to make you aware of that. They would still have the right to make an appeal of that decision back to town council on any element of a decision coming out of the historic board that they disagree with.
But the appeal can only be for procedural
Yes,
discrepancies.
yes.
Which, at this point, personally, I see no procedural discrepancies with what the Historic District Review Board has done. I do find it difficult that they have got as much support as they have by all their neighbors for the installation of this fence, and the fence is purchased. So, you know, from that perspective, I find this a very difficult decision for us to make, because personally, I think I lean toward, yeah, let them go. But we don't have that opportunity. So I think it says here that you will aid the council in making a motion unless one of you all wishes to make the motion.
Well, I'm sure Paul got something.
Yeah, I'll make it very simply. Make a motion that we deny the appeal.
For a second.
Can I, discussion?
Well, yeah,
Is it seconded?
I'll second.
Okay, yes, you may discuss.
Okay. Yeah, this is hard for me because I love what you all have done with the house. And it's been a while since I saw you there, but it's just, it's great. I never knew that little house could be what it is. I'm just delighted, and yes, my inclination is we'll just let him do it. But here's the measure I use is, okay, tomorrow if someone asks me in the street, how did you support this? I don't have substance, I have because I wanted to. And that's not my job. But to me, it's not an issue of the rules change, it's the 16-month expiration of the extension. I cannot, with a straight face, justify why I would call that an extension. So strictly procedurally, I can't do a retroactive 16-month extension. In this particular case, I want to grant as much latitude as I felt I could because it's a great contribution to town what they're doing, but I can't defend voting for an extension 16 months after the expiration. The only reason I have is because I want to, and that's not going to be good enough for anyone who asks me in the street tomorrow.
Anyone else?
No, again, that's why we set up this whole procedural thing to begin with, because of all the appeals we had before. It was just, once we started approving some of these things back then, it's just game on. And then all of a sudden, it was just a landslide of
And you did this
appeals.
in that case, you did that in that
And that's
case.
exactly why we spent, what, 6 months? 8 months, 9 months?
A year.
A year.
A year.
A year set this.
And a lot of money.
A lot of money to
And
set
improving our design guidelines,
this. Correct,
making it a lot more specific.
yes. So, well, I'm the same feeling you are.
Yeah, I
Really
support
want to,
what you
but-
said, Steve and Andrew as well. It's so hard because the work is incredible. But that is not our position tonight to make that decision. I really wish that you guys had submitted the reapplication at the same time as Katie had advised, and I hope that you'll do that. I just don't
Well, it sounds like there's a possible.
think the support's there.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Public comments. There's no visitors to recognize, so we move to public comments.
Okay, there are, nobody else has signed up for regular public comments, but I did receive one to be read into the record. This is from Julie Jones. It says, "Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council, and town manager. My husband Sam and I live full-time at 538 Monroe Avenue, which we purchased in 2015, a very good year. At the work session last month, where Mr. Hosey presented the recommendations of the committee regarding short-term rentals, most of you indicated that you needed more information. I do not know if any of you live in close proximity to one or more STRs, but Sam and I do, so I want to share with you an experience we had last June as a form of more information about STRs. The STR 2 doors over from us was rented for a week in June by a lovely 3-generation family from Tennessee. Over the course of the week, we observed them playing games with the children in the median, going as a group to enjoy the park and the beach, and playing music with banjo, guitar, and fiddle on the front porch. As a retired music teacher, I especially enjoyed hearing Ashokan Farewell live. Exactly the kind of folks you would hope would be renting houses in our town. Towards the end of their week, as we were coming back from the beach, a ruckus burst out from one of the STR duplexes across the street. 2 men on the sidewalk screaming at each other, and the word pedophile coming across loud and clear. The Tennessee family stopped in their tracks in front of their house in horror. Eventually, someone must have called 911 because 2 Cape Charles policemen showed up. People with families come to Cape Charles because of the perception that it is a safe place, being referred to as Mayberry by some. Because of the perceived safety, many families give their children free rein to ride bikes or walk to the park or the beach or just around town without an accompanying adult. Do owners of STRs do background checks on the people who rent their houses? Sex offenders have to register where they live, and that information is available. But what about when they go on vacation, spending a week in close proximity to families with young children, both those who live in Cape Charles and those who vacation here? Don't owners of STRs owe it to the people who live in Cape Charles to ensure that no one who is a pedophile is unidentified in our midst? I know that up until that point, the family from Tennessee was having an idyllic family vacation, making wonderful memories together. Wonder if they will come back. Wonder what they told their friends back in Tennessee about Cape Charles. We truly do appreciate your service to our town and do not envy you the hard decisions you have to make to ensure that the Cape Charles we fell in love with in 2015 is still that charming town with a strong sense of safety and community when our children and grandchildren eventually inherit our wonderful old home. Sincerely, Julie Jones.
That's it. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes approval of the agenda format, approval of minutes, and approval of the October 31st, 2023 financial report.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Second?
Okay, I've got a note here that says the final item on the agenda may be pulled, not the final,
That was before you.
Yeah, you can disregard that note.
disregard the
Disregard
note.
that.
Okay. Fine. All right, is there any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
No unfinished business. First order of new business is Town Harbor Management Contract Extension.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So, as you know, 3 years ago, we contracted management of our side of the harbor with Cape Charles Marine Services, formerly known as Cape Charles Yacht Center. It was a 3-year contract which expires at the end of this year. During that time, there were some learning curves, some bumps, but we figured them out, and overall, administration is pleased with the way that's worked out. However, as I've mentioned to you previously in work sessions, I would like the opportunity to explore other options going forward as to whether we continue that contract, whether we take it back, whether we do something else. But with everything else going on, especially with the utility sale, I simply didn't have the bandwidth to jump into that this year. So I spoke with our contractor, and both sides were amenable to a 1-year extension of the existing contract. And everything stays the same other than the fact that we will be splitting credit card fees with the customers. Other than that, everything else stays the same. And I would request your approval of this 1-year extension to give us time to develop what other options might be possible.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve a 1-year extension for the harbor management contract with
Second.
Cape Charles Marine Services.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just one clarification with regards to the credit card fees. When I went back to the town fees, that is not shown, so this is just something that can occur without any approval for us.
You know what?
The splitting of credit card fees?
It's a good point. You know what, let me double check that, and I might need to do that with the mid-year budget adjustment, just to make sure that we're covered on that, because I'm going to be bringing you back something else on fee waivers and stuff. So, good point, thanks. I'll look into that.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is the beachfront master plan contract award.
So this is an exciting one. As you recall, so we currently have our 2023 strategic plan citizen survey on the street today. Last year's survey indicated we asked the public to prioritize some of the issues for them. And one of the things that came fairly high on the list was to do some beachfront master planning. So you put that on the priority list for the strategic plan this year. We finally were able to work our way down to it this past summer. We put it out on an RFP, and we're thrilled with some really high-quality proposals. And so I put together a committee of stakeholders from representing all the aspects of the community, and we met to go over those proposals. We interviewed 3 of the companies and rank ordered them. Now, this is a professional services contract, so by Virginia code, we are not allowed to consider price in our initial evaluation. So we had the cost proposals in a sealed envelope. After we rank ordered them, then we opened the envelopes, and we're pleased to see that our top choice was actually cheaper than our second choice, and it was about the same price as the third choice. So I think you know, we're right in there for price. I think it's a reasonable cost. However, when I built the budget last year, I didn't really know what it was. I put a little bit of money in my budget for this and the professional services, not quite enough to cover this. So I've got enough in my budget to award this contract now, and if you go ahead and award it, I will be asking to replenish about $60,000 of that into my professional services budget at mid-year. So anyway, the final the winning consultant from the committee is recommending VHB. They've got
What does that stand for?
I was afraid you were going to ask that. It's some Norwegian name.
I was trying to look.
It's in the.
Denise Hagen, Bus.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't
Well,
want to. I didn't want to butcher it.
Not at all what I thought it was for.
You left the view was for Virginia, didn't you?
I was like Virginia something
Yeah.
beach. Okay.
But they've done a lot of other work in town. They're currently working on the rails to trails with
Yeah.
VDOT.
Neville.
Yes, Neville. And so.
Yeah,
I know him.
I know Neville.
They came down and did a lot of pre-work, looking at things, putting together their proposal. I did put their whole proposal in the packet for you.
Yeah.
The only thing that's changed in there was the schedule. We backed up the schedule a little bit, just because there's just been so many things that in November and December that's gotten pushed into January. I asked them to give me a new schedule starting February 1, and that's what's in the packet. All 3 of the finalists had about the same timeline, about a 9-month timeline. So again, that was consistent all along. So I think this is good. It gets us planned prior to and during the season. It gets the planning done in the fall when there's plenty of time for us to consider how we want to implement that into the next capital budget and how it falls in with our other priorities for '25. So I think this is all lining up well. I'm excited with the committee we've got put together. I'm excited about the consultant we've selected, and I would request approval of the professional services contract for Phase 1. Phase 2 is all engineering. If you choose to do anything later, this is only Phase 1 for Phase 1 work with VHB.
So I was going to ask that question. We can make the motion first if you want, but I was going to ask for the record if you could just say in words what Phase 1 is and what Phase 2 is.
So,
Well, I think you kind of summed it up with, in the proposal there, it's research, outreach.
right, yeah, they just took it
and
right out of the
plan
RFP.
development.
Yes, so Phase 1 is, Task 1 is research, Task 2 is outreach. Task 3 is development of conceptual concepts and draft planning documents, and Task 4 is the development of the actual plan. Now, there's lots of sub-steps to all of that, including a lot of public input. So we'll be doing, they're actually going to set up a website for people who aren't here. We'll have public meetings. We're going to have work sessions with you and with the committee. So yeah, they're actually fairly heavy on their budget in some of the meetings, but I thought that was appropriate for some of
And
this.
that plan then will have recommendations in it?
So it will,
Phase two or-
it will have, yes, it will have recommendations for projects with conceptual cost estimates and preliminary conceptual designs. Should council decide to move forward with any of those, we can move directly to contracting with VHB to do the design work. By including, that's what Phase 2 is. Phase 2 is the subsequent design work. By including that in this process, we don't have to go through the solicitation process again. So, and it's also more efficient because they're most familiar with what we're doing.
But
So
it's unpriced at this point.
that is, yeah, because we don't know what projects they're going to come up with or what you might approve. So this is solely Phase 1 at this point.
Okay, thank you. So can I get a motion to recommend approval of a professional services agreement with VHB Incorporated for Phase 1 services associated with the beachfront master planning in the amount of $99,840?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just the follow-up. You said in the wording, we have an oversight committee. Can you repeat the members on that?
Yes, so there's a, my thought process is, I think you've heard me say many times, the town, I believe the town has 4 gems. And so I wanted, which is, the Main Street, Central Park, the harbor, and the beach. And I wanted them all to work together. So I have representatives from the other 3 gems on this committee. So
Okay.
there's a Main Street member, there's a member from CCP, and there's a member from the yacht club for harbor users. So those are 3 members. Also, the Citizen League has, Cape Charles Citizen League has a subcommittee for the beachfront, so they're represented on here. I have Public Works, because they're the ones who have to maintain it. So Public Works is on here. And who am I forgetting?
Town council, Adam.
Oh, yes, and then Adam represents the council, and me, and I'm on there.
Okay. All right. And budget-wise, given the fact that this does spill into the next fiscal budget, do we even have to budget the entire 99 or
I thought-
only what you expect to pay? Because this really is 9 months.
I was going to have that discussion with you when we get to the mid-year budget workshop.
Okay,
We're awarding
appropriate.
the whole 900, the whole
Yeah, yeah,
100,000.
right, that's
So I
right.
just wanted to assure you I have that to cover it. When we get to the budget discussion, I'm going to have that exact
Yeah,
discussion
because
with
I
you about
think it
whether,
may be worth splitting and not having to move so much around.
yeah,
Okay,
we'll talk about that at budget.
all right.
The only thing I was gonna say is Neville, he's extremely familiar with the town. He did all the stormwater erosion, wind studies. He's done a lot for
He
this town,
has.
so he knows his town inside and out. So that's a big score, I think.
Yeah, if any of you are familiar with Yorktown.
I was gonna say, in that picture is where I learned how to swim.
Right, yeah, they did that whole thing.
Yeah.
They developed that whole waterfront.
Yeah.
And it was really effective in their interview presentation where they would put a picture of Cape Charles and Yorktown
Yeah.
through the years, and they get it. So I think they understand what we're trying to do.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
It's very exciting. Congratulations to get that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but
It is.
it's gonna be fun work.
Okay, and the final item is a VDOT resolution for handicap parking space at 627 Jefferson Avenue.
So this one, you may have noticed in the packet, there is a aerial shot of the proposed property and where the handicap spot would go. Initially, I was concerned about this because VDOT looked at this, and if you'll notice, there's a driveway with off-street parking, and it doesn't really look as though there's a need to tie up a space on the street. But and I apologize, I was out of town all of last week, so I didn't really catch up with this until after the packet was already out. So I was originally thinking of perhaps asking you to postpone this until we could talk to the owner more, but we got in touch with the owner, and it turns out that this is a very, very old aerial. It is no longer accurate. So I walked over there this afternoon and took pictures. So laying on your desk is what it looks like today. So so that empty lot in the aerial now has a house on it that's right up against the driveway. And so one of the things, so one of the issues with the applicant is that, right there?
Yeah.
She has difficulty maneuvering into the driveway, and she was concerned of hitting her either a neighbor's property or her property. But if you look on the second page, it doesn't show up well on the picture, but there's a huge dip there. So you have it goes low in the gutter, then it comes up where the curb is, and then that concrete slab going down to the sidewalk is actually at a very steep slope. So a car with low clearance probably would hit that, backing in and out. So
Isn't it VDOT?
it is VDOT. So that's what we're doing. I'm asking you to approve a resolution to VDOT, asking VDOT to establish this no parking area. Now, they may say no. They may look at this and say, well, she's got an off-street parking spot, but,
How about can they fix the curb?
well, that takes money. So,
They might go the cheaper route.
Put paint.
anyway, I just wanted to update that, you know, what was in the packet is misleading, and I just wanted you to understand that, you know, I went out there today and took pictures. I think it's a legitimate request, and I would recommend approval of the resolution and that we ask VDOT to establish this spot.
All right, can I get that motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2023-1221.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I think they should, I mean, if we get them to do this, I mean, just put that in, but we should also get on them, because she's gotta walk up there, or a wheelchair, or something. That's a pretty big tripping hazard.
That apron,
right
yeah.
Yeah.
there. I'm more worried about that. I mean, getting a car in there is one thing, but whoever's falling on their face, trying to get over that little
Or getting a
bump.
wheelchair up that.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of interesting. I mean, it's something to do that right away, so why, you need to fix that.
Anything else? Okay, I move for adoption of resolution number 2023-1221 in support of the request from Charlene Riley for the designation of a handicap parking space at 627 Jefferson Avenue as noticed and forego reading of the resolution. Requires a roll call vote. Holloway,
Yes.
Grossman,
Yes.
Ballmer,
Yes.
Duda,
Yes.
Buckholz,
Yes.
and Bennett, yes. Okay, that's it for the agenda. Town manager comments?
I just wanted to let you know that we just finally finalized and I signed the MOU with ANAC on the EV charging stations. So our part of it is now done. My understanding is they were waiting for the Canoni lease, which has been, my understanding is it's all approved. They're just waiting on one more signature on that document. And then they can move forward with installation. So hopefully we'll see the EV charging stations going in soon.
What signs?
This month's briefing on personnel, we've, I don't know if I mentioned this last month or not because it was right on the edge here. We do hire a new police officer, Jordan Yee, and he'll be going to the academy in January. And unfortunately, Meadow Noonan is leaving. She put in her notice. She'll be leaving in January. Some other status updates. As we talked about earlier, the mid-year budget is we're set for that work session on January 4th. And that's going well. We have Debbie come in, and actually Katie's helped out tremendously as well, trying to help sort everything out, and we're getting zeroing in on that, and I'll have that to you in advance of review. Also, just wanted to update you on the Madison Avenue parking issue. What we were waiting for there was an offer from VDOT to have a crew come in and do a field study to look at the area proposed recommendations other than perhaps just blocking it out as for no parking. So with the holidays and all that, I was not optimistic that was going to happen in December, and it hasn't. So I assume that we will get that scheduled sometime in January, and then we'll bring you options on that then. That time of year already, the 2024 strategic plan update will be coming around sooner than later. As you know, we know we've got the survey on the street right now.
Remind me, the closing date is
The 12th, January 12th. On that, we've gotten about 230 in the system right now, with about 60 paper ones we still have to add. So we're zeroing in on 300, which is not bad for where we are. I expected it to slow down. Right now, next 2 weeks is nothing. Right after New Year's, we're going to have to hit it hard. So I will ask everybody after New Year's, bring it to the top of your page, get it back out again. Let's try and pump that up that first week of January, and then there's 2 weeks in January. We'll accept that. But we have scheduled right now the work session on February 1st is when I plan to present that information to you. Now, as you recall, there's a lot of open-ended type of questions on this one. This one's going to take a lot more work to try and put together. So I'm not really going to have it to you in advance of the February 1. I'm going to present it to you on February 1. And like every year, you're going to get your binder with every single comment verbatim that you'll need to then read and absorb. So I'll be putting that out in February 1. We use that data to update the strategic plan every year. The strategic plan, up until now, was still fairly new. So the first year and the second year, we didn't do a whole lot of updates to it because it was still pretty new and still pretty relevant. This year, it's 3 years old. And so I would like to suggest we spend some time with the strategic plan after reviewing the survey. And, you know, there's been some information that has been presented recently on, you know, how do you manage tourism? You know, I think, you know, the whole STR issue, you know, what kind of a community do we really have? What kind of a community do we really want to be? Those kinds of questions, I think it's time for us to revisit those questions. And so but I need to have that done so I can start with the budget. This coming February is actually leap year next year, so there's actually, believe it or not, there's 5 Thursdays in February.
What?
There is.
More
So
opportunities for meetings.
Like in November, yeah.
I was hoping to see, I wanted to kind of see if your availability for either or both of the last Thursdays in February, either the 22nd or 29th. Will most of you be around for that discussion?
22nd, not the 29th. I think yeah.
Will you all be available on the 22nd?
I'll be here the 29th. Don't know yet about the 22nd.
That day doesn't
So
exist.
my question was going to be, before we get too far into that, last time when we did that, we met all together with planning and historic, some Main Street folks, as we did our strategic planning. Remember that big meeting? I know that when we talked about that then, and we said we'll live with this for 2 years, my understanding is maybe we were going to do that again and coming together in that bigger picture. Because I think we have some insight, but I think those other 2 or 3 organizations are significant part of that.
Yeah, and we also had some talent, like Deb Pocock was able to
Yeah,
add a
town-
lot to
yes,
that.
Yeah. I
Well-
just felt like that was a really beneficial.
It was, and it was necessary, because we were starting
Yeah.
from scratch. We're not starting from scratch again. I was not planning on doing that. I mean, that's a significant lift. To do that and get that done before I start working on the budget, we can do it, if that's what you want to do, but we may have to schedule it on a Saturday.
Yeah, I would think it would
And may
need to be.
need multiple meetings, I don't know.
I wouldn't want to do that at the exclusion of us having our own discussion first.
Well,
I would not
you're,
like that to be our only opportunity.
right, but I mean, you're gonna have the survey results discussion. That's on February. I'm not gonna be here for that, but.
Well, it's not really going to be a discussion, it's going to be a presentation.
presentation,
And you need to absorb it. We're not going to discuss it because you won't even had a chance to read it yet. So it's just a one-way flow of information that day. If we met on the 22nd, that gives you 3 weeks to review that information. And, well, how about this? Why don't we meet on the 22nd, and you can tell me then if you want this to be a broader exercise. And then if it is, we'll probably pick a Saturday, and
I would think we'd want to get something held on a Saturday, and then we can cancel it. It would be I just feel like the involvement of those other groups, I think, is important in our strategic planning. I don't know. Anybody else disagree, agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
You know, just chime up like. it's
I
not
guess
just
rather than
me.
that sort of big brainstorming atmosphere at this stage, I find it more useful for them to each have their own discussions and give us recommendations or their thoughts.
I guess I feel like we learn from them, like each other, and that, it's all a matter of philosophy on, I benefit from hearing what the planning commission member might say, and they probably benefit from something we might say, and vice versa in historic. I just feel like it's almost in a silo that we are individually doing that, and I think it's healthy to be in a group. I guess I'm just a big proponent of not doing strategic planning every year, but every 3 years, I think is certainly beneficial in a broader sense.
give me direction.
Yeah, I'm forward.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
The general meeting.
All right, how about Saturday the 24th?
Yes.
Yeah, that was like in December. Whoops. It's fine with me.
Does that work for everybody?
I need to spend some time with my calendar. Firm up some dates.
All right, I'll lean in that direction.
Definitely not the firehouse.
And I did talk to.
Well, we don't have a lot of choices, and it's
I
middle of
know.
winter, it's cold.
I know.
Yeah.
that'd
Well,
be
you know, we did do it one year in the Oyster Farm Cabana room. You guys remember that? Oh, yeah, that was I thought that was very good.
But I don't know if it'll hold everybody.
Not the little room, the bigger, yeah, I think the bigger room
cabana
would. Yeah,
Yeah,
we did, that's the first week
yeah,
of
but
February.
that's downstairs though.
You're right, we did,
No, it's
all
up,
three.
yeah,
It's the
all-
restaurant
it's all-
upstairs and the Pearl.
Oh, wow.
it's expanding, yeah.
yeah.
Jeez.
I think the Cabana could do it.
Yeah, we've had a
Big
lot.
Hollows.
We did do it in there, didn't we?
We had a lot of business
Your
meetings
first year,
with
maybe.
the business association.
We only did it 1 year.
Oh, no, we did that in the firehouse.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know, but I mean, we had a couple meetings that first year.
Oh,
We
okay.
had more than one that first
Okay.
year.
Okay,
So, all right,
It's gonna be 30 people.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll be big.
But that'll
I think we
fit
can do a
30.
big hollow square in there, yeah.
all
I
right,
just,
In between all the pillars.
yeah.
That's what we
Yeah.
did at one time.
Right.
okay,
Upstairs?
Yeah.
I'll start looking into that. And then,
I did talk to Adam about that too. I know he's not here, but he was in support of that direction as well.
I think you got unanimous. Cornered them.
last thing is, I will be out next Thursday and Friday, but I will be back for the crab pot drop on Sunday. So, other than that, hope everybody has a great Christmas.
Okay.
Nothing.
I do. And I'm glad that Mark is here back there. That's funny that you are. I was gonna I don't think we've done this, and if I did miss it, I apologize, but it can't hurt to do it a couple of times. I just wanted to say congratulations to Central Park for a great 10th anniversary season. It was a wow, for sure. And then the special work that you did with the planters at the end of the season, and I don't know if anybody knows, but he's got a group that's out there working in the park every week on cleanup days, and it's amazing to see the work that they're doing out there and upkeeping the gardens and things like that. So I just wanted to say, when you walked in tonight, I couldn't believe it. I thought I was just going to say it for the record, but thank you so much. It certainly, we appreciate it as our backyard, but everybody else really benefits from it. So thank you so much for all that. And then just a special congratulations to the town and Cape Charles Main Street for Festive Fridays. Just knocked it out of the park. We have one more tomorrow night. I hope it's locals night for sure, and everybody gets out to enjoy it if you haven't. And the employee event, the party was just wonderful. Did a great job. It was really a nice time to be together.
I just want to echo a lot about the Festive Fridays, also recognize a couple other groups, the Education Foundation that is doing a lot for public schools and has been having a big piece with Festive Fridays. The Cookie Trail, the annual Cookie Trail that the town hosts, I think was very successful. The number I heard was 650 people going through
insane.
homes. It really was crazy. So, yeah, I think it's just a wonderful event, and I'm looking forward to not having 5 Fridays next time.
Exactly.
Bill, did your hands warm up yet?
Not having 5?
Yes.
I like 5 is good.
You'd like 6. Paul?
Yeah, 2 items. One, going through what we had done tonight with the appeal and the language in the guidelines, the guidelines language is fine, it's not in the ordinance. And I'd suggest if we're updating our ordinances, we need to insert that sentence or 2 that make it consistent. And we had talked about the consistency between the 2 documents, but I'm just suggesting maybe Article 8 needs to also include that element. The other thing was Katie Nunez and I went to Richmond at the request of VML and Virginia Housing to talk about housing subjects with other localities. And it was a good exchange of information, and we kind of need to decide what our next steps with this group is. But we traded some war stories there. Short-term rentals was a specific subject, and I can't say anybody was for, some of the language. The thing that I want to just pass on is they had mentioned Airbnb has hired a second lobbyist, and it will be back again nipping at the corners of short-term rentals and probably tot tax and collection processes. So we need to keep our ear to the ground there. Not a lot of bills have been submitted, and what we were hearing is some people are holding back until day 1 of the session that starts on January 10th. So we won't get a running start on some of this stuff, and you've got a lot of new people. So this is going to be really challenging to try to grab your delegate or senator's ear in order to make something known. That's all I have.
Andrew? And I don't have anything either, other than wishing everyone a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, safe and prosperous New Year. We do have some announcements. December 22nd, town offices are closing at noon for Christmas holiday. December 25th, town offices are closed for Christmas holiday. January 1st, town offices closed for New Year's Day. January 4th is a town council work session, FY 2024 mid-year budget. And January 18th is the town council regular meeting. May I have before I say that, Libby, thanks again. I haven't looked at this, but thank you
Yes.
again
Yes,
for
thank
your
you.
gift.
And Tammy?
Outdo yourself every year. We appreciate it, or I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody does as well.
Yeah, just one thing. Congratulations.
Tomorrow's a big day. I
Tomorrow's a
spilled the
big day.
beans before you came in.
Congratulations.
Yes, I do retire tomorrow.
Oh, very good. I didn't hear that. Very good.
So with that, if I can get a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank